We all know that more life in our future means more problems in our future, right? We can't change the fact that we will continue to have problems, but we can ensure that those future problems will be smaller. Let's give our future selves that gift, shall we? You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 188, How to Make Your Future Problems Smaller. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hi, my friend. Welcome to the episode, and thanks so much for listening today. I hope you're having a great day so far. Getting this episode recorded for you today, the struggle was real. It's been frustrating, but I'm so glad to be here with you, and I'm sorry you're probably going to hear a little birdie chirping in the background because I'm not where I usually am. How is your exercising? Did you stop? That's like you. Training is where it's at. It's so much funner to have a target and focus on what your body is able to do. Exercise is a chore, but training expands your capabilities and gives you options to do things you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. Today, we're going to talk about how to make your future problems smaller. We know that life is hard and will never be exonerated from pain, uncertainty, hard work, and problems. There are always problems, which isn't always a bad thing. Solving problems is like solving puzzles. It does a brain good. Developing the skills of being a good problem solver makes your life way better. But that doesn't mean you want to attract more and bigger problems. If you did, you could just stop brushing your teeth or start smoking crack and get really into taking selfies with bison at Yellowstone or something. We know more life will come with more problems, like more money, more problems. So if we want to stay alive, we know it'll come with more problems along the way. It's worth the trade-off, but we want those problems to be things that we're capable of dealing with. So without a crystal ball, how can we know that our future problems will not be too big for us to handle? How can we ensure that we're not going to get hit with problems that will overwhelm or incapacitate us? I'm here to help you reduce the chances of developing most of the common diseases of aging, and there is so much you can do to reduce the chances of developing those problems that most people consider a normal part of aging. But you can do everything, quote, right, and still have health issues. In fact, you probably will. So how do we make those future problems less of a problem? I love this idea from T. Harv Eker's book, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Have you read it? It's pretty short. He says that our problems have different sizes. It's kind of obvious, right? You can have a size 1 problem like your nail polish chipping, or a size 3 problem like a cavity at the dentist, or a size 10 problem like metastatic cancer. We know we can and will have problems of all sizes, but the secret is that there's some math involved in the size of our problems. Math, yay. Even better, secret math, the best kind. And we can use the secret mathematical formula to make all of our problems smaller. Pretty cool, right? Who doesn't want to do more math every day? I actually do. Maybe you do too. Anyway, the size of our problem is the product of the magnitude of the problem and the size of us as a person. The actual size of our problem isn't just the size of our problem on a scale of 1 to 10. It's the size of our problem on that scale in combination with the size of the kind of person we're being at that moment on a scale of 1 to 10. I really tried to make this just a simple subtraction problem, but it doesn't quite work. It's more nuanced than that because a size 1 person having a size 1 problem has a really big problem, but a size 10 person having a size 10 problem has a really small problem. I feel like it's pretty intuitive. If you're experiencing your size 1 problem of the barista spelling your name wrong on your cup, but you're being a size 0.1 flea-sized person who can't believe he'd be so disrespectful to not pay flawless attention to your answer to his question, you experience your situation as more of a size 8 problem, which is ridiculous. It's a really big problem that you have to go tell everyone about and take drastic and dramatic action to feel better about, which is pretty sad, really. But if you experience your size 10 problem of the death of a child, say, as a size 10 person who understands the fullness of life and is here to learn from every experience life has to offer her, it's more like a size 1 problem. Make sense? To be clear, I'm not a size 10 person, and I would never want to minimize someone's grief or trauma or suggest that it's their fault that they have hard things going on in their life. I can't even imagine trying to cope with some of the things I hear people suffering through. So this is really more of a thought exercise. There are all kinds of problems we could encounter as we get older. High insulin levels and high blood sugar caused by insulin resistance. That will exacerbate pretty much every other health problem that there is, weakening your immune system, making wounds harder to heal, increasing your risk of heart attack and stroke, drastically increasing your chance of developing dementia, increasing your risk of cancer, making you go blind, killing your kidneys, leading to limb amputations, you name it. So while your doctor most likely will present it to you as a size 2 problem if your level isn't clinically diagnostic yet, it's really more of a size 8 problem, or higher, I would say. Maybe you'll develop unexplained fatigue that impairs your ability to be who you want to be. You might experience a lot of hormonal symptoms around the time of menopause that make you feel like you're going crazy. Maybe you'll experience insomnia or chronic pain. You might get diagnosed with an autoimmune condition or a heart condition. Your eyesight or hearing could decline. There are all kinds of problems that could crop up. This is starting to feel depressing, but that's not what I wanted it to be. What I want is for you to feel hopeful and ready for anything. I'm hoping that you can see that you can pretty easily climb up the scale of a problem's significance, but have the problems be less of a big deal if you're operating as a larger person. And conversely, to have not that big of a deal problems become gigantic if you're being a small person. So rather than focusing on what the problems could be, focus on who you fundamentally are. How would a size 10 person operate? How about a size 8 person? Or a size 6 person? I think a small person blows up tiny problems and ignores big ones. What do you think? Do I have it right there? A small person would be more likely to try to get someone fired for not smiling at them with their eyes, but simultaneously more likely to shrug off evidence that they are under-muscled or that their blood pressure is creating shear forces that are weakening their endothelium every day. Professional philosopher and author and speaker Tom Morris pointed out on a Zoom call I was on with him once, and I never really thought about it before, which is that most wisdom we come across and learn about has to do with perspective. Most of what we consider to be wise has to do with perspective. That's true, right? Whatever our problems are, we can make them smaller by changing the variable in the equation that has to do with how big of a person we are being. The biggest part of being a bigger person is having appropriate perspective. There are 2 main ways to improve your perspective: space and time. Those are easy to remember, right? Space and time. There's a life coach named Trip Lanier who has a good visualization exercise to help us with the space part of perspective. He says that whenever you have a problem that feels like a big deal or is stressing you out, imagine launching yourself out into space and hovering around somewhere near the moon. Now turn around and look back at the Earth. Try to see yourself on that blue marble. Can you see yourself and your problem from there? Now, imagine that you're so big you can pick up the Earth in your hand like a baseball. Grab it and fly the 93 million miles to the sun. Just for fun, throw the Earth into the sun and watch it disappear. Realize that you could throw 1.3 million Earths into the sun to fill it up. Imagine throwing more Earths into the sun 1.3 million more times. Take a break and see if you can spot which one of those Earths was the original Earth. Then come back to reality and write a lowercase I on a piece of paper. Take a good look at the dot on your eye. The difference between the size of that dot and the entire planet Earth is how big the sun that you just threw 1.3 million Earths into is in comparison to the Milky Way galaxy. Then imagine between 100 billion and 2 trillion Earths, all thrown into a big bag. The dot on your eye on your piece of paper is the sun that holds 1.3 million Earths. One of those Earths, in that tiny dot, has you and your problem on it. Does your problem feel so big now? Space. Nothing feels like as big of a deal from a cosmic perspective. Here's another space tool. I heard this from the philosopher I mentioned earlier, Tom Morris. He says that images help us quickly remember important things better than just a collection of words or ideas. So when you need perspective, imagine the image of a telescope. Telescopes are awesome. Hopefully you've spent some time looking through one before. We got my son one for Christmas like 5 or 6 years ago, and he pretty much never uses it, which is annoying. But anyway, they're amazing. You can see otherwise tiny things in great detail. They make faraway things look closer, larger, and more imposing. Tom says that everyone uses a telescope the same way. That's because that's how they were designed, and we all frequently look at our life's problems through our emotional telescopes. We start thinking about our anxiety or headaches or uterine fibroids or our general disdain for exercise or drinking water or the strained relationship with our brother or the cutbacks at work, and we look through our emotional telescope and it starts to appear more detailed, bigger, closer, and more imposing. It really looms large. When we get caught up in the drama and fear and overwhelm of this huge problem, that's when we can use his suggested perspective tool and not be normal and turn our emotional telescope around backward and look through the big end. Look toward your problem from the big end of the telescope, and the problem you're looking at will seem smaller, farther away, and less significant. It's a practice to try to remember to keep flipping your telescope around every time you're overwhelmed by challenges that seem huge. It'll take some time and a lot of reps. Tom says that once you've done that a few hundred or thousand times, you'll no longer be overcome by emotions when problems come up, and you can set the telescope down and just see the world as it really is and realize it's all stuff that you can handle. Pretty great, right? Move from being a size 3 person to a size 6 person by repeatedly looking at your problems through the big side of the telescope. And eventually you'll become a size 9 or 10 person who doesn't need a tool and can just see things the way they really are. But it's okay if it takes a while. Okay, so you've got your problem and you have these two different tools to use space to get some perspective. And they're both memorable images, so that's helpful. Throwing the Earth into the sun and flipping your telescope around. I'm sure you've heard this tool before, but it's so useful. That was space. Now we need time. When you have a problem arise and it feels overwhelming and confusing and sort of all-consuming, travel through time to get some wisdom in the form of perspective. Ask yourself how much this problem is going to matter to you in 5 minutes. How big of a deal will it be in 5 hours? In what ways will it still matter to you in 5 days? How about 5 weeks from now? Will it still be overwhelming? How about in 5 months? 5 months from now, will this still be a big issue? What about 5 years from now? Will you still be thinking about this problem all the time? Try 5 decades from now. Is this something that will be written into the history of your life? Will it even matter at all? How about 5 generations from now? Some things will still matter to your great-great-grandkids. Is an extra inch of unexplained belly fat one of them? I love this tool. It's so helpful for problems and for decision making. When you feel overwhelmed by having to do something scary or not knowing which choice to make because you really want to make the right choice, it's so useful to think through how much this will really matter or what you would feel about it or the choice you made 5 weeks or 5 months or 5 years from now. A bigger person has better perspective, which she can achieve through thinking about time and space. Those are great tools. Here are 2 quotes from Trip Lanier about perspective. So what does all this mean? You, me, all of us are daily crises in drama and getting pissed off because the barista forgot to put 3.5 soy vegan sprinkles in our lattes. When we start to imagine this massive universal perspective, we start to see that no matter what we're thinking or doing, it's really just not that big of a deal. And it never will be. And another, we don't have to make everything such a big deal. After all, comparatively speaking, we're basically just a speck of dust on an infinitesimally small rock hurtling through one of trillions of galaxies in what is ultimately just a blink in a span of time our brains can't even begin to comprehend. Maybe, just maybe, whatever that mouth breather Jerry has to say about your presentation isn't such a big deal. End quote. I love those, especially mouth breather Jerry. I was originally going to leave it at that because all T. Harv Eker talks about is a bigger person having a better perspective. So useful. But as I was thinking about examples of problems we can encounter trying to age at an elite level so we're capable of living more as we get older, I started to think that there's more to being a higher number person in terms of aging well. One is that a higher number person would show themselves and others more love and compassion. When you love yourself and the person who parked too close to you, you react to that door ding as a higher number person. That can for sure be challenging, but I also think tapping into the love you have for yourself and for others is a surefire way to make all of your problems smaller. Something else that came to mind for me as I was thinking about all the examples of health challenges that commonly crop up as we age is ownership. When we can take more ownership for our problems and the role we played in their creation, it makes it so much easier to discover the root cause and an intelligent solution. This isn't blaming or shaming yourself, but realizing that maybe there's something in your daily habits and routines that contributes to you getting sick with a cold a lot, or never having enough time in the day, or hating your job. Something that you can change. When you can take ownership over your role in your problems, you can start to realize that how you move your body and what you put into it and the way you think and talk has downstream effects. So you can affect those outcomes way upstream. A high number person always seeks the truth about how they can play the hand that they've been dealt more optimally. I love Tom Morris's metaphor of turning the telescope around and seeing problems that seem big as small. Most of the time, that's what we need. I also think that sometimes we need to turn the telescope back around and see regular problems on the horizon as bigger than most people do. Most people see changes in their 40s and 50s as normal, because they are. Just like a horse on the horizon is normal size. A size 2 or 3 person accepts that that's just what happens. Your bone density goes down. You don't like or want or need to get up from the floor anymore. Your muscle mass goes down. You can't lift as heavy of things as you used to. Your endurance isn't good. Your joints ache. Your memory isn't sharp. If you have access to lab data, insulin levels go up. Kidney function goes down. Fat accumulates in the liver and around the organs. Inflammation increases. Immune function decreases. It's all common and very commonly accepted. But I think, and I'm pretty biased here, but I think that a size 8 or 9 person looks through the business end of the telescope and sees those normal size problems as much bigger and closer than a size 2 or 3 person would. Not in an everybody panic kind of a way, but in a proactive way. The horse is coming this way and it's about to get a lot bigger. A size 8 or 9 person knows what they want to be able to do in their 90s and realizes that being normal in all of those ways is not going to create that. They get serious about maintaining and or building their muscle mass, which has side effects of improving bone density and insulin sensitivity and ability to easily do things like get up off the floor. They evaluate their endurance capacity and their movement patterns to decrease all of the aches and pains that come with misaligned movements. They make sure their lab tests aren't normal, but are optimal. It's not the same thing. We don't want to be normal. They take sustainable and enjoyable corrective action now, while those problems only seem big if you look at them through the high number person perspective, instead of waiting for them to actually become big and scary all on their own, which they eventually will, for sure. Making your future problems smaller is possible. It starts now. It's about being a higher number person who sees things in the proper perspective. You evaluate things in the perspective of time. What's actually going to matter 10 years from now? You also consider things in the perspective of space. How big is this problem really? You make love for yourself and love for others your guiding principle. You attempt to always act out of love. You take extreme ownership over your role in everything that happens, and you catch big problems in their infancy and take action to correct them long before most people would think that you need to. Doing the work to become a higher number person pays off in so many ways, not the least of which is that it makes your problems smaller number problems. Maybe eventually you'll become a size 11 person who couldn't find a problem in her life if she tried. I hope so. Thanks so much for being here today. You are so great. Next week, we're going to talk about reconciling body positivity with the importance of being at a healthy body weight. Until then, use this secret mathematical formula to make all of your future problems smaller, and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.